morning, everybody. Welcome to TARTLEcast with your host this evening, Jason Rigby.
Yes, I'm pointing at you.
You
know who you are.
You listener, you watcher.
That one that watches us but never subscribed to YouTube.
Yeah.
They've never pushed the subscribe button because they're so afraid of commitment.
Yeah, they don't want to commit to us. They don't want to commit to themselves by signing up on TARTLE. Yeah, we're looking at you.
That's the person we want to talk to. That one that's in the that is in that middle yucky realm.
It reminds me of
it's
politics.
Yes.
They're like, we don't want the people on the right or the left. We can get those easy. It's the ones in the center.
Yeah, the independent.
It's those independent. It's those independent folk.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the ones we want.
Independent
to
woke folk.
Make a commitment to tartle.co. Sign up today and hit subscribe on the YouTube.
No big deal. Get it done. It's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, it's
subscribe's not going to hurt you.
No, because we get way more audio. I was looking at that this morning. It's way more audio than
visual.
Yeah, than the video part. So
I think
that's
it's easier
why I'm trying to
for people to do other things with the audio.
I think audio is I think we're in like a 1920s 30 boom again.
Mm-hmm.
I think podcasting has the amount of views that some podcast shows are getting more than like CBS News at night.
CBS News is garbage.
Or any of that, like any of the like sitcoms or TV shows, they're getting, hundreds of millions of views.
Yes.
It's just like, there's not 100 million people watching this one television show.
No, and
Dancing with Stars, really.
If you think about it too, like CBS, like if it's a live news thing,
right?
They don't really get everyone's attention.
I always
people
picture
aren't listening or watching to our podcast right this second.
I always picture like the CBS, ABC, and NBC shows. The people that are watching that are just pale, tons of carbohydrates. Drinking like light beer,
angry with themselves, the world,
the world. Yeah, their 9-to-5 job that they've hated for 30+ years.
Yeah, and they go and
they've got a pension.
The real smut they get comes from CNBC.
Yeah, and they're just waiting for something to trigger them so they can just yell at the TV.
Yeah,
it's like that's where you're from.
Oh,
yeah, it's like everybody just yelling at TVs and then fighting with each other.
I watch people read the newspaper and get upset about it. Why are you getting upset at the newspaper?
Because I know some pubs in Boston can be pretty rowdy at nighttime.
They get very rowdy. Yeah, there's a couple Irish ones in Southie that, listen, I'm not Irish. I'm Scottish. I wouldn't even want to step in there. Very tribal. That's the only way.
Well, it's like when Irish people came over here in the United States, you had the potato famine and you had everything going on. So there was like super bad poverty. And then, and we know this, in the Industrial Revolution, that's where unions came aboard and everything else because they were just taking, Chinese workers and Irish workers.
Yep.
And paying them pennies and having them work 7-8 days.
What do they call them? The Irish workers who built the train tunnels under the Hudson.
Yeah.
What are they called? Sand something or?
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know they would even do it was 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. It was like 12, 15-hour days. And then they would have a cot provided for you. That was it. And then you switch the cot with the next person. Yeah. So you would tap them on the back.
You know what that reminds me of? Russia during World War II. We don't have enough rifles for everybody. So I'm going to give you ammo and you're going to run behind the guy with the rifle.
Yeah, exactly.
So when he gets shot, you tap him on the back and be like, all right, I'm going to tag you out. Give me your rifle.
Yeah, that's just crazy to me. It's that mentality. So you had these Irish immigrants that were just, they came over here. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they just, through sheer will, banded together and then, became a part of.
You need a community, especially when you're in a foreign land.
But I think the boxing and all that stuff that they, like in the old days, they would box outside the pub. They bare knuckles.
You get the wrist really cocked back this.
I think that was just a way to they're just so frustrated with life.
Yeah,
and that's what you saw over the where you're from.
People just getting frustrated over just the most ridiculous stuff.
And when I look at the Irish community and Gaelic and all that, a lot of that is symbol oriented.
Well, yeah. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the majority of Irish Celtic art comes from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine it all funnels back.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. So what happens is you have there were great pilgrimages that happened across Europe. So there were these these very highly religious artifacts that certain churches or families would hold, and so people would go from in the Middle East in certain areas like the Holy Land and move themselves across Europe to go visit these places, right? Those missionaries, those people that are on that I don't know, what do you call that path? Gosh, there's one in Portugal too that it's like a couple 100 miles long.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, whatever, right? Pilgrims. Okay,
Right.
they're pilgrimaging around. That's all that matters. But they carry their culture with them. They carry that artwork, those symbols, and those symbols then begin to infiltrate, not in a bad way, but the consciousness, the behaviors, and the culture of people that are not, have no local representation of what that symbol means. So until there's some sort of explanation from the people in the Middle East explaining what this Celtic artwork actually means, then you can get an idea of its interpretation and its value. And then from that, it can then begin to evolve into its own meaning specific to the people of Ireland, or a Celt, or a Druidic person, whatever that might be. And so there's so we get into this very interesting idea of symbols themselves. Okay, and this is our bridge here.
Yes, I love.
And why do we use the word bridge?
Yeah,
bridge gives you a representation,
yes,
a reference point in your mind. Oh, what do bridges do? They bring, because our convention of us as human beings understand that a bridge brings one point over here to another one that otherwise couldn't be traversed easily. So that's what the bridge does. It helps unify. We use that word a lot. So is it so much that when I speak something to you, Jason, is it the words you're listening to, or is it the visual representation in the mind,
Yes.
creating almost symbols within the mind to represent what is being said?
Yeah, I think subconsciously, I would imagine, like when you mentioned bridge, I thought of a bridge.
That's right. When people say, don't think of the giant pink elephant. Well, what do you do?
Then I thought of like C4, and then I thought of...
Yeah, but that's what happens. The visuals, you go through stages of visuals depending on the your life and your own experience.
Yes, yeah.
And your experience designs what your interpretation of that symbol might be. Now, the question then becomes, when you look at a symbol, is the symbol a function of its own interpretation of itself? Can it stand alone objectively? Or do symbols carry their meaning from a subjective standpoint, from how us as viewers or the collective of society actually looks at a symbol? People are probably like, what the heck are we all talking about? Like, what does this even lead to? So the idea here is that the obvious next stage for artificial intelligence that would be extremely beneficial to it is symbolic behavior. Because, and I was explaining this morning to Amanda. If I give you the middle finger,
Right.
maybe it causes some sort of emotional charge, right? Or we think that it has some sort of meaning telling someone to bugger off.
Yeah, or it can be funny.
Or it could be funny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
There's lots of different meanings with it.
So she's going to interpret it one way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interpreting it one way with how I'm delivering it.
Right.
But somebody else may see that and interpret it completely differently as a third party observing. And then the collective of everybody coming together looking at it says, well, that's, it's an albeit negative thing.
But a symbol has to have proper context.
Well,
that changes its meaning, so there's variability with it.
So there's variability with it, right? So that becomes the question of, do symbols, are they only interpreted subjectively? Or are they interpreted objectively, which means they can actually stand on their own? And if it is subjective, then how would artificial intelligence create a symbol or read symbols from a subjective standpoint? Because if I have the collective input of many different people, those data points coming together to say, this is what we feel it is, or this is, what's the word that starts with a C? This is our contention. No, that's not the word.
Yeah, contention would be, a strife.
Yeah, it's not a strife. Oh, it's our convention. I'm sorry.
Right.
One letter. It's our convention of its meaning as a collective. And that's the interesting part. So how would artificial intelligence then begin to create algorithms that made sense for the interpretation of this. But that also leads to something else. The person that is pre-programming the initial algorithm for the interpretation for the machine learning or deep machine learning to refine itself, is that the proper platform for it to begin off of? So if I am inputting something, do I put the input of symbols and their meaning as something objective in my algorithm or a subjective algorithm? If it's something that's subjective when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence, then I need to collectively take the understanding from all cultures across all periods of time and put them together. But if it is something objective, then what is it from an experiential stance of something that deals with a universal part that sits outside of human consciousness, but is defined by the laws of physics and other things of that nature? Is that how I'm going to define it?
Well, I mean, we've even, let me get real practical. We've even taken the point of mapping out stars and then associating them with archers. Or
excellent.
You know what I mean?
Excellent job. So there's an interesting connection that happens here psychologically with the brain, right? Is that we create these maps to help us define understanding of something that is otherwise separate.
Yes.
So if you look at the etymology of the word symbol, it's a Proto-Indo European word, which means it goes way before any of the languages that might have developed in Europe at the time. And it kind of almost goes back towards Sanskrit. And what it's saying is that if you look at the word sim, which comes from sin, S-Y-N, it's a combination. It is defined as togetherness. So if I'm looking at these stars, okay, I need to put them into togetherness. I have to bring them together. But bringing them together requires work.
Yes.
And that's the bowl part, the B-O-L-E, which comes from the Proto-Indo-European word called gvel, G-W-E-L. And that means to cast. So I'm actually fusing these things together. Maybe it's not only just, stars that we look at, but maybe I'm fusing multiple ideas together. So the sin, the togetherness, plus the work, the fusing of those things define the word symbol. So a symbol is the bringing together of maybe many disparate things
yes.
to actually define a picture that is representative of those things.
Yeah, it would be the same as when I look at an image of a fire truck. Let's just say, or I see there's symbolism all over that. Everything has its own badges and, and then, but when you see a fire truck, there's so many variables, like where artificial intelligence had such a hard time, because now you have this congruence of when you were a child and you played with fire trucks. You put the little ladder up, and all that. And then you have this whole other idea. So we have an endearment to a fire truck that, especially, from when you're a child, and then you hear a fire truck and the fire truck is going to something perceived as bad.
To save.
Yes, yeah. But then little kids are getting excited. See, if you're a computer, you're like, how is this? This is a fire truck. This is for something that's a fire that's destroying their place of residence, which is important on Maslow's hierarchy, is to have shelter.
Yep.
And then people are getting excited. These little kids are running outside. How would a computer even understand any of that? You see what I'm saying?
How can it conceptually understand that human life has to be protected?
You would think we would run from a fire truck.
But people are excited in the idea of an imminent threat.
Yes,
just because of
we have that psychological aspect of it too.
It's just a psychological aspect of it. And so, this starts to beg a question. What color is a fire truck?
Yeah, exactly.
Fire truck's red.
Right.
So then what's a symbolic interpretation when you see the color red? When someone gets angry.
Oh, stop or anger.
When someone gets angry, what do
red
they become
chakra.
flush?
Yeah.
Not red, or, if you go into, the spiritual side of things, people think like red chakra, right? Root chakra. Like that's the base.
Right.
So it's like this basal color, which is indicative of, some sort of, Maslow hierarchy, very natural charge that is occurring, and it's represented in a large format.
Right.
And that's also represented with noise. So I'm going to take noise in a specific format. I'm going to take color, and I'm going to take a machine, and I'm going to take the idea of what that machine's used for, and I'm going to bring them together and cast it into a symbol, which is the fire truck.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when we did that, okay, there are a couple things here that
you created a network of web of data.
A web of data, right? And a good portion of that data is objective.
Mm-hmm.
Red has a specific wavelength. Red has a specific representation. It is, albeit red, that's what it is.
Right.
Sound is a thing based within physics itself.
Yes.
Okay. But and that machine is a function of engineering.
Right.
Okay. Physics, force, chemistry coming together.
Right.
To actually build this thing out. But the design of it is something that comes from human thought.
Yes.
This is now subjective. This is how a fire truck should look, long and rectangular, right? The fire truck should only be used to then go help people, right? So a good portion of the fire truck, maybe 60% of it, is something that is in a strictly objective sense. But then we come in as human beings through our referential experience of interacting with a fire truck, whether direct or indirect, to say that, okay, this is my subjective experience when I've been with a fire truck. It's either I was in the house that was burning down and my life was threatened, and then the fire truck comes and saves me, or I find joy as a small boy to look at that fire truck and be like, wow, this is an exciting moment. But the people driving the fire truck are only thinking about business. We got a job to do.
Right.
There was lives to save.
Right.
So all these different interpretations come into play. So how is it that you would code that sort of interpretation into a machine learning algorithm or a deep learning algorithm so that it can be like, this is the proper interpretation of it? So on that fundamental basis of the thought for how we actually interpret symbols is going to be a fundamental platform for how we tell artificial intelligence to interpret a symbol.
And that will be on the next episode.
And that'll be on the next app.